Welcome to a new edition of Candid Campbell. I'm your host, Nicholas Balsey. We're here with our Dean of Students, Tony Campbell. So let's start by talking about the parking spaces on campus. Students have been hearing about a couple hundred spots being added, but does the university plan to take any further steps on this issue?
Well, we are going for next year. You realize that we're losing the gravel lot by dailies because the township will not allow us to keep it there for another semester or another year. That was a temporary lot. To replace that lot, we're building parking lots back behind Poita. There'll be about 200 spaces back there. The net increase for that will be about 100 parking spaces. Right now, we're planning on using those spaces for first-year students and first-year student resident parking. There will be, when the new residence hall is built, there'll be 152 additional spaces built with the new residence hall. So we're working on that. So, you know, the net new out of all of that would be, what, 252 net new spaces when it comes by. And then with some of the things that we're looking at in terms of limiting or trying to reduce first-year students from bringing their cars and doing some things that, although we're not eliminating, they can still bring a car. We're thinking of charging them a fee for parking, first-year residents. That might help us reduce the number of students that bring cars. You know, we're doing that. Plus, we're going to have, the shuttle between the campuses next year. That's going to be an everyday shuttle, so that students who have classes on the Princeton campus and people who have from the Princeton campus have classes here at the Lawrenceville campus won't have to drive. They'll have a regular shuttle that'll meet the classes. That'll be a Rider University shuttle, not a public transportation bus. So that's going to happen to help out too.
Would the fee be eventually removed after, like, freshman or sophomore year, or is it just something that would happen at the beginning?
Right now, we're looking at a possible fee for first-year students.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, as far as a parking garage is concerned, what are the positives and negatives of that for a rider?
The biggest negative of a parking garage is the $12-13 million cost it would be when you start looking at, would you rather spend $12 or $13 million to park cars, or would you rather have a new residence hall building or a new academic building? So when it comes to construction, it's the choice. Eventually, I think we're going to have to build, if we're ever going to add parking, that's somewhere we're going to have to go. But right now, when we're in the process of looking at building a new academic building, more classroom spaces, the new residence hall, the choice was residence hall or academic buildings, and I don't think there's a choice that we wouldn't take either residence hall or academic building over a parking garage. It's one of those. I think really what we need to start looking at is, maybe distributing our class schedule a little bit better over time, so they don't have the 10 to 2 crunch as like we do now. Maybe expand times, or see how we can look at other options that might reduce the impact of cars at one time.
And if they do build an academic building and the residence hall, is there even any space for something like a parking garage? Would that just be out of the question at that point?
Yeah, I really don't know. One of the master planning exercises that we did had a parking garage sited near Daly's, or back behind Daly's, or back behind where the intramural fields are, or back behind the SRC or the alumni building. Maybe build one there. Those are, long-range master plans that may or may not still be available building sites by the time you get around to building that. So, we have an idea of where we might want one. That's all so far in the future that we're not really. I don't think it's realistic to discuss where we'll put it.
At the Student Senate, they brought up something about a turf field.
Right.
And that the MAC conference and Division I in general, most schools have turf fields.
Right.
Is Rider considering this?
We are. In fact, we're looking to fundraise some of the money, and then operational budgets will fund another part of it. And I guess the Student Senate would graciously said that they would fund 1/5 and the university will fund 4/5 of it. We're looking at a field plus lights and maybe bleachers. We're not going to build that until we actually have the fundraising pledges in hand, because we do not want to use any additional money from revenue that we have now. We want it because that would increase costs for students. So what we're trying to do is make sure that we can do that without having to increase our cost or cost of students, and do it with fundraised dollars. The interesting thing about that is that, yes, you're right, we can no longer hold championships in field hockey or tournaments in soccer because we do not have a turf field, and it makes it very difficult. And when you get to the MAC and our conference and Division I athletics in general, that becomes almost a necessity nowadays. So we are the only one in the MAC that doesn't have it. We have to, we're looking at siting it back by the soccer fields, take out the practice soccer field and put in the turf field there. That would also mean moving the other practice soccer field to the back and work from there. I think it'll be a blessing. It'll be a very good thing for intercollegiate. It'll be an even better thing for the typical rider student, because a turf field with lights will allow us to extend our intramural program outside. If you remember now, you have football game, intramural football game. Firstly, you can only play in the daylight because we don't have lights.
Right.
Secondly, if the field is wet, so we don't tear it all up, you have to cancel the intramural games. Otherwise, you can't do it. With a turf field, we'll be able to play in wet conditions. We'd also be able to play at night so that students wouldn't have the conflicts with classes and work that way. So I think we can expand our intramural program immensely.
I'm moving on to an issue that is getting a lot of attention recently, housing. A lot of students are saying it's going to be tight next year for housing. What has the university done early to plan for possibly finding off-campus housing for some students, if that's the case?
Well, you know that the New Jersey state legislature passed a bill that for residence halls we have to have sprinkler services and we have to have certain kind of furniture in the buildings that are fire retardant and would meet certain codes. That kind of regulation prohibits us from renting spaces for students because they would, if we had those things, that the buildings next door wouldn't be fire retardant. We could put students at risk according to the law. So we can't rent spaces for students. What we can do, and what we've been doing, is talking to apartment complexes to make it easier for students to rent from them on their own. And for example, White Pines had a program where they would not allow any student under 21 to rent, and they had to have all sorts of independent financing. We've worked out with them that students who are 20 years and above and have the co-signature of their parents can rent there. We're working to identify, what we've done is surveyed all of the apartment complexes, putting it up on a website. So we asked the typical questions, everything from what the rent is and how much utilities are, all the way down to can you have pets? And seeing how that would do. They have a 6-month, we've identified some that have 3-month leases, 6-month leases, and 12-month leases. And so that students can go to the website and find out if they have the availability, how to make those contacts. We're also, for this year, creating through Dave Keenan's office, an office of off-campus services that's going to help students find apartments and do things. And we're also developing a program to help students understand different kinds of insurances, how to finance rent, and to help them so they won't be ripped off. The important thing to notice, though, Nick, is that we are guaranteeing students who want housing. We will probably increase triples, even for upperclassmen, because we've grown faster in retained students than we expected. We were hoping to hit the retention level of 82% in the year 2010, and so in order to do that, we were building new residence halls in 2009, thinking that we would be a year ahead of the curve. Well, we hit 84% retention this year, surpassing our goal for 2010. And so it would put us a year behind in building that 2009 residence hall to meet the need.
So now,
we've had it.
Yeah.
So the good news is students like Rider. They appreciate the kind of education they're getting, and they're staying. Okay. The bad news is for 1 year we're going to be really, really crunched, but we're building those 152 new beds, and that's going to be a real plus.
So you are guaranteeing housing. It's just that
for this year.
For this year, it's just that it's going to be a little more tighter.
It'll be tighter, and you'll have more triples, and There probably won't be the singles offered. A double single room is probably a thing of the past because we want to, meet these. Again, we will do everything we can to help students if they're want to go off campus, and work with on campus too.
All right. Now, how far along is the planning process for the new residence hall?
We hope to break ground this spring in the new residence hall. We've gotten the designs. We're working with the planning board to get the final permits and do all that. We've got a construction manager. We're ready to go in a very short period of time with that. I think again, it's going to be exciting. We have to move. If the propane tank is over there, we have to move the propane tank, and we're not going to have it any longer, which is a good thing in my mind. Then we've got to do some site work, get all that. But the construction will start soon, and we're going to be open by the fall of 2009. You also know we're adding to Daly's dining hall, and you may have heard that we're adding where the patio is.
Okay.
We're adding another dining room there that can hold about 200 additional students. Students have been complaining that during the peak times that there's hard to find place to sit, so adding those 200 extra seats will be helpful. But also that room is going to be able to be reserved for student meetings and conferences.
Oh, that's good.
And
Nice.
it'll give us back the Daly's boardroom in the back as a meeting space, so it's going to help us out a lot.
You mentioned that the percentage of, with the 84%, that rising, and we're reaching it now early, so a lot of students are staying on campus. Are you satisfied with the weekend programming that the university has taken up?
I think weekend programming on campus has been very good. I think our Student Entertainment Council does a very good job with weekend programming. When you look at the number of people, the 600 people that show up at Bronx Buffets or Bronx Bingo, and you see the movies programs and the other programs that have been going on, the comedians, we had a lecture that was done well, and the bus trips to Philadelphia and to New York. There's a lot of activity on campus and things that can be done. Should we do more? We always want to do more, but it's up to the students who are planning that to help with that. And I think that we make the mistake sometimes of leaving it all up to the Student Entertainment Council. I think we have to do the Student Entertainment Council. There are other clubs and organizations we're encouraging to do programs. I know ASAR is planning a very big program for April 4th. I know that other clubs and organizations are planning programs. So if we talk about a student body, we all are funded. We have over $780,000 in student activities fees that the Finance Board distributes each year for student programming. If we have if student groups work together, there'll be even more programming. I know that the SEC is about to announce a major concert. They're holding it all secret until they make the grand opening announcement. But they're going to they're doing that on a Saturday this year instead of a Thursday, which I think is a good thing.
I noticed now that we're having a little more lectures on campus on the weekends compared to when they've been on the
lectures,
during the week.
Yeah, lectures that with people that the students like to see.
Right.
They're more celebrity lectures as opposed to academic lectures, and I think that's important. I think that's a good thing for students because it's a break from it is a lecture. They talk about good issues, but it's a break from the academic journal kinds of lectures that they hear during the week. Although those lectures, as you know, have been marvelous. When we bring in people like Wesley Clark, we bring in people like Scott Ritter and the others. You can't beat the newsmakers that we bring in, and you've taken advantage of them for interviews on your show.
Oh yeah, I mean it's been great, all the issues that have been covered with a lot of these people, which are national people that the community recognizes, not just people at Rider.
And lectures are an important part of an academic community because what are we in terms of an educational institution if we can't debate the issues, if we can't hear a point of view and be able to debate and question the person who is creating that. So I think it's really important for us not to shy away from controversial speakers and things so that we can hear them, we can debate them, and if we can't debate them on a university campus, where else are we free to do that? I think the election coming up right now is going to be an exciting one. Philadelphia and Pennsylvania is going to be active in the Democratic race. the question, the students need to be aware of the issues. They need to be aware of what's going on and make some choices. The important part of this whole engaged citizenry right now with our students is that they're making a difference, and the politicians, for the first time in any real way, are listening to the age group of 18 to 22-year-olds.
Yeah, we're seeing youth vote going up, and hopefully that'll carry over into the general election. Right. Are there any planned events coming up that you know of that you think students would be really interested in the next couple months?
There's the next couple months, obviously the concert is one I think students will be interested in. The ASAR on April the 4th is putting on a program, entertainment of a lot of diverse ethnic traditional dancers and entertaining. It's going to be everything from step shows to traditional Indian dancing to some Latin dancing. It's going to be fun. That's on April the 4th, and that's an excellent show. And I think that's there's a gospel fest coming up. There have been, there are intramural programs. Obviously, there's a lot of, this is the time of year that a lot of clubs and organizations do a lot of their awards banquets, and so that's also where students get honored, and I like that. And congratulations to you on getting your Who's Who the other day.
Thank you. It was nice. It was a nice ceremony.
Yeah.
You had the difficult task of covering everybody's accomplishments while you were in front of everybody in the audience.
Well, the nice part about that is it makes it real easy when you have students who contribute so much to be able to talk about them. Not often enough do people recognize all the fantastic things that our students do, from community service to the things that you've done on national TV, to the things that our students are doing in really helping their community grow and learn. There's so many of our students, even accounting majors with 3.9 plus GPAs that are working with after-school programs and homeless groups and to do things. We're an amazing community, and I think we need to recognize more and be proud of ourselves for all the wonderful accomplishments of our students.
Yeah, it was nice to see the accomplishments across the board, all different schools, all different majors, and some things that you wouldn't even expect that kind of major actually participating.
That's right.
Especially a lot of the community service activities.
That's right.
And different places they've gone. So it was nice to see that.
It was, and the communication department certainly did have their share of good people.
We did have a lot of people there, yeah. Represented well. So now we're almost 7 months into the calendar year for this academic year. As far as the policies that have been put in place with the alcohol task force and all these other different things put in place, how do you feel that they've worked so far? And is there anything that you think could be improved?
We're going to do a full assessment at the end of the year, but I think that they've, for the most part, I think they've worked. I think they've had an impact on the culture of the campus. Some people would argue that it's an impact that, we've taken away some of the fun by not having the Greek houses have parties and things. I think that what I'm seeing is that the pub is more active, more people are who are of age who want to be down there, and people even who are underage who are there just drinking soda are having more more time to interact. I think that's good. I think that you're seeing more people at the Bronx Bingos and seeing more people at some of those events, I think is an impact of the alcohol policy, because there's more to do. Those kinds, we've stepped up that programming. Will we have complaints? Do we have complaints? Yes. And we'll work to address them. Do we have folks that, will we ever completely stop underage drinking? No, I don't think we ever will completely stop underage drinking in this age group. What I'm hoping that we can do, and what I think we are being successful doing, is reducing the dangerous drinking and taking action when we do catch the underage drinkers. I'd like to see us work more closely for changes. I'd like to see us work more closely with the township and on the Good Samaritan policy, so that we can figure out a way where, although the students don't get charged from the university if there's a Good Samaritan, if they do use a Good Samaritan Act, that we can figure out a better way to work with the township so we can help students not be afraid to help another student. I always worry about that. Here you got a student who will tell me that I didn't want to call an ambulance for somebody who did something who drank too much because they're afraid they might get in trouble, and it might hurt their career. Well, if you wait too long and they don't make it, you've hurt their career in a much more difficult way. So, get help first is the message we want to send, and look out for your fellow student is the messages we want to send. And but more than that, we want to send the message of, responsible consumption. Alcohol Awareness Month is coming up in April, and the first week in April will be a lot of programs on that will demonstrate, or give us an opportunity to talk about alcohol awareness and alcohol understanding on this campus, and give us a chance to talk about some of these issues.
Well, I want to thank you for taking some time
Thanks.
to update the campus community on the issues.
I'm glad you invited me back.
Thank you. That's all the time we have for our show today. I'm Nicholas Ballasy, and thanks for watching.